You should be good to go now.
All right, thank you. So I now call to order the 406th regular meeting of the City of College Place Planning Commission. Will the clerk please take roll call? And do we have someone to take roll call tonight?
Christy, are you going to do that?
Yeah. Commissioner Roth?
Sure.
Commissioner Olson? Commissioner Dawson?
Here.
Commissioner Riceway? We also have Community Development Director John Rickard.
Since some people are not audio or are audio only, potentially, would commissioners please unmute and state that they're here when they're doing roll call?
There's some audio fault. And obviously Commissioner Brennan.
Commissioner Brennan is here.
And then Commissioner Wagner.
Present.
And then I'm not sure, we went back to Commissioner Olson or Commissioner Riceway. All right.
Are here, so we're not hearing them.
Okay. We also have Community Development Director John and myself, Administrative Assistant, and City Clerk Lisa, City Attorney Reed. She's not there as well. All right.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Commissioner Olson, at the bottom of your screen or wherever the, it's typically either at the bottom or the top. If you hover your mouse over, it should come up with your mute or video icons. A little microphone icon. Give me a thumbs up if you're seeing it. I'll do a quick share of my screen so you can see what to look for. Right here. Commissioner Ricewig is joining us again.
Okay.
Is your audio working now, Commissioner Ricewig? You're muted. There we go.
Yes, audio is working now. Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. Commissioner Olson, you might try exiting the meeting and joining again. Click the link to join again. Oh, speak now.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
We got you. You're good to go. Thank you. Sorry for the technical delay. Everybody can go ahead and proceed.
Very good. I'm glad all can participate now. All right, we have two opportunities for public comment this evening. The first comes at this point in our agenda, and it's related to, well, items not related to our agenda, the general comments. John, did you receive any general comments outside of our evening's agenda?
No, we have not received any request for public comment for anything that's not on the agenda tonight.
Okay. And shall we proceed to the consent agenda? All right.
Yes.
Our consent agenda includes approving tonight's agenda, approving the minutes from August 17. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'll need a commissioner to make a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Any opposed? All right, so that brings us to our regular agenda. And I believe that starts with a presentation on the 2021 Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulation Update. I believe that Greg Dorn is here to provide that.
Thank
Greg,
you.
do you want the ability to share your screen, or do you?
I think I've been provided with that already. And so let me just do a quick test to see if that is in fact the case. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, have I been able to get a, oh, there we go. Is there now a document on the screen?
Yes, there is.
Okay, great, super, thank you. There, we are in the process of reviewing several potential amendments to the city's comprehensive plan and development regulations. And I would like to take a minute and briefly describe each one. And then commissioners, if you have any initial questions, we can address those. And then it would be appropriate to go to the public hearing portion of your agenda. And instead of having 4 public hearings, we would have just 1 public hearing tonight on all of the items. And then afterwards, there will be an opportunity for discussion and review of the comments that you've received. But starting with, if I can get back to where we were, there we go. The first set of amendments before you have to do with the comprehensive plan and have to do primarily with matters pertaining to affordable housing. And there are 2 sets of amendments. There are a number of amendments that were requested by the Affordable Housing Implementation Task Force of the Community Council that had been working over the past couple of years to develop strategies to promote more affordable housing throughout the region. And those amendments have been highlighted in green on the document. And then in addition, the city has prepared some additional potential amendments. And those amendments really have to do with the countywide planning policies that are, I think, now over well over 20 some years old. And we encountered when the city had proposed some amendments to the urban growth area boundaries that it was a 20-some-year-old methodology contained within the countywide planning policies that seemed to be standing in the way of a more thoughtful review at the county level of the city's proposed amendments. So there are some city proposed amendments in yellow highlighted in the document. But commissioners, you'll remember that the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan start with a vision statement, and I'll scroll through that briefly, and then go into a series of goals. and all of the goals have been presented together, so you could get a sense of the scope or scale of those revisions. So 32 in all. And then there are a series of policies that would be used on a day-to-day basis by city staff, by the council, in making decisions, and would help lead to the realization of the goals. There are a few housekeeping matters, such as, item number 6 here, where it previously said support the preparation, adoption, and implementation of a master plan for the Walla Walla University campus. The university has already done that, so there is some minor housekeeping measures, but you'll see now in yellow the changes of that are proposed by the city, to calling for updating the methodology of determining the development capacity of lands within the city, exempting the construction of new affordable housing when we're conducting the development potential. And there are a number of other changes you'll see here in yellow. All of these have been proposed by staff and in consultation with the city of Walla Walla, who has had some similar experiences. And so there is a cooperative effort between the two cities in working with the county to address those kind of the outdated aspects of the countywide planning policies. The other policy changes focus on manufactured home parks, of which there are 2 within the city. And in our previous update activities, there was a policy that called for integrating the manufactured home park zoning district into the multifamily zoning district. And then there was a series of changes made to the development regulations based on that. But the implementation task force of the Community Action Agency is recommending to the cities to reinstate the mobile home park zoning district based on their findings from other communities, that a dedicated zoning district for manufactured home parks can be an effective tool in helping preserve affordable housing opportunities within mobile home parks and manufactured home parks. So we have included the amendments that were requested by the task force. Preservation of existing affordable housing is one example of that. And like I say, the statement of the manufactured home park zoning district is the principal component, and then calling for strategies to minimize the displacement of persons that are living in manufactured home parks. So that's one item, is a series of amendments to the comprehensive plan policies as it relates primarily to affordable housing. So commissioners, do you have any immediate questions or for us before we introduce the other items that will be subject to the public hearing tonight?
Commissioner Brenes has a question.
Please.
Please.
Okay. So one of the items talks about, I don't know, coming up with incentives for affordable housing. And is there any definition of what incentives are?
Not strictly speaking.
Yeah, right there, policy 14.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just, well, at some point, I guess whatever the incentives are would have to be, brought through city council and whatever hearings I'm suspecting. But, to me, it was just kind of like wide open. And what are these incentives? Anyway, that was just
sure,
kind of a concern on my part.
Yep, and you're exactly right. I mean, this would provide the direction, and then as incentives are developed, then they would have to go through they would become a part of the regulations and subject to review and approval. So this would be the policy direction that would lead to the development of specific regulations. Commissioners, other questions before we introduce the other items? So then in addition to the changes to the goals and policies, that would then lead us to some potential amendments to the city's zoning code to implement some of these policy directions. And let me see if I can get back and further update the screen again. Okay, let's see. How do we do that? Oh, come on, get bigger, please. I am, oh, is that it? Let's see. I am, Lisa, I don't know if you're still on but I am not able to find it seems to have disappeared on me where the opportunity to refresh the shared screen is.
If you hover your mouse towards the bottom of the screen, it should come up for you.
Yeah, I think, okay, I think what's happened is that the screen has gotten reduced in size and I can't get it.
Okay, I'm going to take away your rights to share and then give them back to you.
Okay.
And that should help.
Okay, great. There we go. Thank you. So I should be able now to hopefully, now do you see the regulations on the screen now, commissioners?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So with the policy changes, these would be changes to the zoning code that would reintroduce the manufactured mobile home park zoning district as a dedicated zoning district. The description is reinserted. And I didn't list out the table of permitted uses, but identified the uses that would be included in the table of permitted uses. And this is based on the previous zoning district. So you'll see what would be reintroduced there. And then we would we'd modify the development standards to bring back some of the provisions that were previously deleted. And here we go. And then there would be some additional provisions added based on the policy direction that would provide residents in mobile home parks and manufactured home communities with an extended notice period for proposed zoning changes or development standards, and to provide some advance notice that if a park is going to be put up for sale and to provide opportunities for tenants to potentially buy the park. And all of this is predicated on the notion that the residents in mobile home parks and manufactured housing communities are frequently elderly, frequently have low incomes or fixed incomes, and would be highly vulnerable to displacement. And so would be measures that would attempt to enable them to stay where they are living for as long as possible, and to avoid sudden surprises or requirements to relocate, knowing or recognizing that they may have limited means to do so. So that is the second category of changes. It is around the reinstatement of the manufactured home, mobile home park zoning district, and the addition of some provisions to try to minimize the adverse effects of displacement. So, commissioners, any questions before introduce the other two elements that are under review?
Okay, so again, Commissioner Brenes, I have some questions regarding some of those conditions here at the bottom, where you're requiring from the owners certain things before they sell their are able to sell their property. And you know, if it's zoned for, you know, as we're changing the zone, if it was to be sold, it couldn't be for another use, correct? It would still have to be for a mobile home park.
Yes, or one of the other enumerated permitted uses. So yes, there would be, if it was sold, the use potential would be limited unless the property was rezoned.
So I'm a little confused as to why we're putting all those requirements on the property owner, that he couldn't sell the property unless he does all these lists of things. If somebody else wants to come and buy it and the use is the same, what is the concern, as I guess it's the city that we have, that we need to make all those requirements?
Yeah, I think they are more oriented based on an assumption that there would be a conversion, and that might be an appropriate change to make to these, that that those notice requirements may not have to be as extensive if it's just going to be a change of ownership without any changes in use.
But I guess, and that's my question, they wouldn't be allowed to have a change in use unless we, as a city, consciously rezoned it or did something else
That's correct.
At some point.
That's correct.
So I'm just kind of, again, I'm just sort of thinking that we're, that some of this, it's probably almost not applicable. Plus, I'm also concerned because, and we haven't gotten there, but some of the letters that were written from the ownership side are kind of making a point that maybe some of those things may be illegal, those requirements.
Yes.
So if I could add, Greg, in response, the provision, the option to purchase provision that is in this proposal, it's a mechanism for keeping this sort of housing as affordable. The potential of a park selling is that you know, the new owners' rents could go up, things like that. So if we give the tenants an opportunity to you know, to organize and, you know, form a group that and put together a proposal, it doesn't obligate the landowner to sell to the organization. It just gives them the opportunity, and so it's just one of the tools in the toolbox. Doesn't mean that the landowner would have to sell to them.
I had a question as well, Commissioner Dawson.
Yes.
I have kind of the same concern. It just, I guess all along it's been something to me that seems like it's a lot of, I don't know if it checks a box somehow for the city and it makes us seem like we're kind of going with the, with the flow of some other cities that find this useful. But to me, we say here, it's like, oh, the mobile home parks are oftentimes filled with tenants who might be quite elderly, low income, or very limited income. And so and then we're saying like, oh, we're going to take these people who probably couldn't afford it and offer it to them. It just seems like it's a given. If it goes up for sale, we have a free market. You put it on the realtor, MLS listing. If somebody wants to buy it, they put in an offer and buy it. I mean, it seems like it really makes it burdensome to the owner, to or maybe even unattractive for other owners to even want to participate in affordable housing options such as mobile home parks, just because of a bunch of extra red tape. And I guess if we're not really sure it works, or we're not really clear it's effective, then why don't we cross that when we get there? And then the other thing on the side is saying that we have to offer it to a tenant. What if the owner wants to sell it to another company or another person? I mean, what if they don't want to sell it to the tenants? It's their property. At the end of the day, it seems like they should have the ability to sell it to whoever they want to. So yeah, I guess I can understand it if we're checking a box and it's something unforeseeable that hasn't been explained yet. But if that's it, I think I'd like to hear more about what it's accomplishing. I know what we want it to accomplish. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It might be appropriate. I think that will be an item that the commission will want to discuss. So my inclination is to wait until you've received any additional testimony and then have that be an item for discussion by the commission.
Okay.
That sounds good. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, we'll have to go back and revisit that. Do any of the other commissioners have questions at this time?
The next item may perhaps be a little easier to deal with. And let me see if I can get it up on the screen again. Let's see. There it is. And these are what we might refer to as housekeeping amendments to the development code. And the intent is to clarify some of the existing provisions, a clarification regarding the placement of driveways on a corner lot in a new subdivision, the clarification of what constitutes a qualified professional when we're dealing with land use regulations, and some clarification on language as it relates to townhouses, and some of the kind of details within the international residential codes regarding townhouse construction. So intended to be housekeeping measures. The other one is to clarify that that fences must be 7 feet in height or more to trigger the requirement for a building permit. So no fence is over 8 feet high, but under this housekeeping measure to make things align with the existing codes, if you are over 7 feet, that extra foot potentially would require a building permit. So these are proposed housekeeping measures by staff. And commissioners, if you have any immediate questions, we can address them. Otherwise, this too would be the subject of the upcoming public hearing.
All right, any questions from the commissioners? All right, Greg, what else?
And the final item is relatively simple and straightforward, assuming that once again I can get the part of the screen to return that allows me to share something. And let's see, at least I think you might have to disconnect me and reconnect me, because there it is. Thank you. It is for some reason not letting me readily do that. So the final item for consideration this evening goes with the first two items, and it is an amendment to the official zoning map, and it would reinstate on the map the two zoning districts that were, or two areas that were previously zoned manufactured home park, and that had been merged into the multifamily residential zone. And this would take them back out of multifamily residential and reestablish on the map the zoning as manufactured home park. And so they are the two at the north end of the city and in the southeastern corner of the city. So those are the two changes to the map. So we've got policy changes to the comp plan, regulatory changes associated with reinstating the zoning district, reinstating the zoning district on the map, and then a series of housekeeping measures, since we're in the process to clean up some of the areas where there was some confusion or questions. So exhibits A, B, C, and D. And commissioners who have received a number of written comments that have been included in the record. But Mr. Chair, when you're so inclined, if you would like to open the public hearing to see if there's any additional comments on any of these four items this evening.
Mr. Chair, if I could interject, as we do have Rachel Elfenbein, who is the applicant for the comprehensive plan, most of the comprehensive plan amendments, and also the regulatory proposals before you having to do with the manufactured housing and the option to purchase. And she would like to address the commission as the applicant before the public hearing opens up. If you're so inclined, it would be typical for us to allow the applicant a few minutes to speak on their application.
Great. Thank you, John. And Rachel, would you like to speak?
Hello.
Thank you, Rachel. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
John, can you give me some advice? Do I join as a panelist or stay as attendee? It's asking me whether
You can join as a panelist, and then I'll put you back as an attendee after you're done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I think the floor is yours, Rachel, if you're, there you go.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, John, and thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak about the application. And I just want to address a couple of the questions that were raised about the manufactured home park zoning and what is included in it, in particular, the opportunity to purchase. Like John said, the opportunity for the residents to purchase, and it details qualified organizations, which could be the residents themselves forming a cooperative. It could be also a nonprofit housing organization or a housing authority, which have the mission of providing affordable homes and keeping them affordable. So it is, like John said, it's a mechanism to keep homes affordable, and it does not mean that the landowner has to sell to them. What it does offer is a protected time period in which the residents have time to organize and decide whether or not they want to make an offer to purchase the park, or if they would want to work with a nonprofit housing organization or a housing authority to help to purchase the park to keep the homes within the affordable. There are jurisdictions across the country that do have resident opportunity to purchase legislation. The whole state of Oregon has this for manufactured home parks, and from my understanding, it's been quite a success and has really enabled many parks to remain affordable for the residents in them. There are over 1,000 manufactured home communities within the United States that are resident owned. So this is a model that started developing, I believe, in about the 1970s. So it's not a new model in our country. And we do have a nonprofit organization nationwide called ROC, Resident Owned Communities USA, which assists residents in organizing and financing to buy a manufactured home park should they want to buy it, and also assist them in forming the nonprofit organization and managing it as a cooperative. We have an affiliate here in the Pacific Northwest. It's called ROC Northwest, or Resident Owned Communities Northwest, which works with residents of manufactured home parks if indeed they do want to buy their parks and operate them as a cooperative. And the reason why, for example, the state of Oregon has this and why it's being considered by other jurisdictions right now is because we're seeing in many manufactured home parks across the country and here in the Pacific Northwest, and we're just seeing this right now in the city of Walla Walla, is that when parks sell in particular and a new owner comes in, we're seeing rents go up, and they go up quite substantially. With the park that recently sold in the city of Walla Walla, rents are going up very substantially. We're not quite sure how much it will be because now the residents are going to have to pay for utilities that they've never paid for before, and the park owner hasn't said how much those utility bills will be. But we're seeing, it could be anywhere between 20 and 100% increase when you add on the utilities in terms of what they would be paying, because we're still waiting to find out what that formula will be. And some of those seniors living in that park, for example, are living completely on Social Security. I know of one family that's living on around $1,100 a month. So the increase of their rent from about $300 to $500 and make their housing, that would make them housing, what's considered housing cost burden, or living in homes that are not affordable. So the reason why we have these opportunities to purchase legislation in different jurisdictions across the country is because managing parks as cooperatives has been an effective mechanism to keep the rents affordable for those approximately 1,000 manufactured home communities that are resident owned in the United States. And it doesn't say that the landlord would have to sell to residents who want to form a resident owned community. But what it does say and what we have proposed is they would need to negotiate in good faith. If they have an offer from someone else who wants to pay more money for the park than the residents can afford, then the park owner can sell to them. There's nothing in what we've proposed that says that the landlord or park owner must sell to the residents or sell to a housing authority or sell to a nonprofit organization, but it's saying that these are, legitimate, potentially legitimate buyers who have the mission of keeping the homes affordable. And we are concerned because both parks in the city of College Place are comprised of people 55 plus, about 55 years old and over. So the majority of them are senior citizens, and a lot of senior citizens are living on fixed incomes. Like I said, Rock Northwest and Resident-Owned Communities USA, they do offer upfront financing to help the residents purchase the park should they decide that they want to do so. And then it's a loan that they have to pay back. So because we know that, I think Commissioner Dawson raised this question, how if they're low income, how can they afford to buy the park? Well, Rock would assist them in financing so that they could afford to buy the park, and then they would pay back the loan. Like I said, this is an example that has worked in approximately 1,000 manufactured home communities across the United States to keep the homes affordable for people who are earning low income. So thank you once again for the opportunity to respond to your question.
Thank you, Rachel. John, would it be appropriate for us to invite commissioners to ask further questions as we did with Greg's presentation, or should we take that into a public discussion?
I think you could, if you have questions right now, I'm sure that would be fine to continue that discussion. Or you could move into the public hearing portion. And I believe we have some people in attendance that do want to speak. Lisa can confirm that, but and then after the public hearing is closed, then there would be more time for you to deliberate and talk with staff and ask questions of Rachel, myself, or we have the city attorney present as well. So if there's any legal questions you wanted to ask her about the possibility of some portion of it being unconstitutional, or any concerns that you might have. So.
And we do have attendees that have said they want to speak.
Okay. About how many do we have, Lisa?
There are 3 people in attendance at this time.
Okay.
All right. Well, John, if I may, let me offer a chance for the commissioners to ask any questions at this moment of Rachel. And then, of course, we'll have a chance to come back and discuss further after public comment. Commissioners, any questions you wish to ask at this time? All right. John, remind us of the formality of how we open public comment.
There is some public testimony procedures. We ask that all speakers give their names and address of residency. Comments should be addressed to the hearing body, should be relevant to the application, and should not be of personal nature. We ask that you be considerate of everyone's time. So please try to limit your comments to around 3 minutes. We're not going to be keeping a clock or anything like that, but if there is any rambling that goes on, we may ask you to finalize your comments. Avoid being repetitive. And be polite. Those are the general rules. Commissioner Roth, when you do open the meeting, if you would state the time that you're opening it, and then when you do close it, also state the time as well. That's helpful for us.
And we do need a motion to close the hearing.
Thank you. All right, so we'll open the public hearing at 7:46 p.m.
Okay, sorry.
What? Since you can see, why don't you call on those who are present?
Mary Campbell, I will allow her to speak.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry, this is Catherine Beninga, not Mary Campbell. And I live at 2015 Carl Street in Walla Walla County. And I am the study coordinator for Community Council. And so I just wanted to give a little bit more background on the study and what we're advocating for and why we think that this proposed zoning change is important. And just point out a couple things that maybe haven't been brought up yet. One thing that I think is important to remember, and this is something that has been brought out through our recent research, is that most of the residents in these manufactured home communities are actually homeowners. They don't own the land. And so we tend to think of them as just sort of leasing the property all out, but actually they own their homes. And those homes are actually not mobile, right? And so that word mobile home is sort of a misnomer. The homes are placed on a pad and they're not intended to move. And I think if you spoke with residents, you would find out that they expect that they will live in their homes that they own until they sell them, right? And so they don't intend to move those homes. And so I think, you know, when you're thinking about sort of the issue of property rights, it's a balance between the property rights of the residents and the property rights of the landowner. Just something to point out. Let's see. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is with regard to sort of the trend in land use change over time and what's going on with manufactured home parks. Manufactured home parks have become a really great investment, an investment opportunity. And what we're seeing over time is, you know, originally these manufactured home parks have been owned sort of by these mom and pop operations. And as those people age out of, as they get older and they want to sell or, you know, do something different, maybe get rid of the park or not have their property anymore, and their kids don't want to take it over. And there's opportunities to sell because there are very large investors who see the rate of return, high rates of return for manufactured home parks. The rate of return, the capitalization rate's anywhere between 7 and 11%, which is very, very high. And one thing that's really interesting is manufactured home parks are very good investments when the economy is bad, because pressure on housing costs goes up. And so there's all this downward pressure on manufactured home parks, which are the cheapest option. And so I think, you know, as you're considering what's going on with home prices in our region right now, and you consider that there is all this pressure on, you know, the less, what are currently the affordable homes, there's probably a strong argument to preserve those affordable homes, because they won't be affordable if, you know, if they're not protected in that way. So I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have another person who wishes to speak?
Yes, Ishbel Dickens.
Please.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ishbel Dickens, and I have been working with manufactured homeowners for over 30 years as a volunteer, as a community organizer, as a legal aid attorney, and ultimately as the executive director of the National Manufactured Homeowners Association. I'm now retired, and I currently volunteer with the Association of Manufactured Homeowners, a Washington nonprofit working to help manufactured homeowners in Washington preserve their homes and communities. Over the years, I've worked with staff in Tumwater, Linwood, Marysville, Spokane, and Snohomish County as they develop their mobile home park ordinances, all of which have been in place now for several years. Even though the landlords challenged the Tumwater ordinance, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in an October 2012 decision ruled in favor of the city, and to date there has been no detrimental effect on the landlords. Indeed, one landlord in Tumwater sold his community for more than the appraised value, even after the ordinance went into effect. Additionally, Ellensburg, Renton, Olympia, Linden, SeaTac, Montlake Terrace, Bothell, Mason County, and Franklin County have all had mobile home community zones for decades. Indeed, College Place, as you well know, had its own in the past, and I see no real reason why it might not be reinstated. Some jurisdictions institute mobile home park zones not only to preserve existing manufactured housing communities, but also to encourage the production of new communities as a way to expand the affordable housing options available within a city. A mobile home park zoning ordinance does not restrict the community owner's ability to raise rents, to change the rules, or otherwise operate their business. They are also able to sell the community whenever they choose. A mobile home park zone also provides seniors and other families with a level of security of tenure that would otherwise not be available to them. Current law means that the land under these homes can be sold with 12 months' notice. That is not enough time for homeowners to make good decisions regarding their futures. Manufactured homeowners do not expect to move once they have established themselves in the community of their choice. Seniors in particular find it extremely stressful to have to make major life decisions, especially when these decisions are being forced upon them by their landlord. Most homeowners displaced from closing communities end up having to move their homes to the dump, not because the homes are unfit to live in, but because there are no place spaces for them to move to. Some people who are forced to dispose of their homes in this manner may still have a mortgage on the home, and they will have to pay that off whether they have the home or not. Landlords tend to rely on two state Supreme Court decisions from 1993 and 2000, where the court determined that a right of first refusal, which is an opportunity for homeowners to unite to purchase the land under their homes and preserve the community, were unconstitutional. However, dicta in a 2019 state Supreme Court case, Yim versus City of Seattle, suggests that those earlier decisions might well be decided differently were the court to hear them today. There's a bill before the legislature right now, House Bill 1100, which provides an opportunity for residents, nonprofit organizations, and housing authorities to make an offer on a manufactured housing community should the landlord be interested in selling. This mirrors the language in your proposed preservation ordinance, and as Rachel stated, since there is nothing in the bill or your language which requires the landlord to sell to any of these entities, there is nothing here that is unconstitutional. The landlord is able to sell to whomever they want, and indeed there is currently a statewide incentive to sell to the nonprofits or the residents, because when a landlord does that, they are exempt from paying real estate excise tax on that sale. Using whatever tools are available to preserve existing manufactured housing communities makes a great deal of sense, especially when the two manufactured housing communities in College Place account for over 8% of the city's housing stock, and especially as these communities provide 320 spaces of affordable homeownership opportunities for seniors who want to live independently in their own homes. In fact, senior manufactured housing communities are NORCs, naturally occurring retirement communities, a new idea that is gaining legs as a way for seniors to stay as long as possible in their own homes. Affordable housing is always at a premium, and once manufactured housing communities are gone, they're gone. No new ones are being built. The 300 plus households in College Place who chose manufactured home living did so in order that they could live within their means and not be a burden on family or the government. They wanted to buy a home of their own or downsize as their families grew and spouses passed away, and they wanted to remain as independent as possible. When manufactured housing communities close, the majority of homeowners who are displaced are not able to relocate their homes, thus losing all of their equity and usually losing the opportunity to be homeowners ever again. Basically, they end up swelling the wait lists of local housing authorities, or they move back in with families, or they become homeless. Manufactured housing communities are dense neighborhoods where people take care of each other. There's a real sense of community and untold devastation when these communities close. In the mid-2000s, more than 50 communities across the state closed, resulting in the displacement of more than 2,000 households. Please give your full support to the proposed mobile home park zoning ordinance before you this evening, and many thanks to the staff who've worked on this policy and requested its reinstatement. I am more than happy to make myself available to answer questions either now or later. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Are there others who wish to comment?
We have one other person listed as Tom. I will give him the ability to speak now. Tom, please give your full name and address.
My name is Tom Stokes. I work in the real estate business at Keller Williams here in Walla Walla, College Place. I'm licensed in both Oregon and Washington, and I have had experience selling manufactured homes in parks And I just agree with all the comments from the speakers that there was never any intent to limit a park owner's ability to market effectively, but just ask that they would have a relevant period of time that tenants in the park could have an opportunity to organize and perhaps purchase the park. I've worked with the Rock organization in the Spokane area, and they're a very effective organization. So, in special circumstances, they get involved in these purchases. But as a as a realtor, I just would like to see the city of College Place, consider these suggestions on how to move forward and continuing the manufactured home park allowances in the city and county. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is our last attendee.
All right. Before we proceed to discussion, we'll need a motion to close our public hearing.
I motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. So closing our public meeting at 7:58 p.m. Next, we'll move to further discussion. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions you'd like to raise at this time?
So Commissioner Brennis would like to review those sections of the proposed code that have to do with the requirements for property owners if they want to sell. I'd like to review those again.
All right. John or Greg, do you have?
Yep, let me see if I can't. No, that's not it. Bear with me just a moment. Here we go.
Oh, what happened?
We lost your screen share, Greg.
Yep, I hope is it, did we get it back on?
Yeah, it's back on.
Okay. So is are the regulations visible?
You're on the policies. I think you have Exhibit A up. You need Exhibit B.
Okay, just a moment. I have Exhibit B, but you don't. Let me see. Okay.
Do you want me to put mine up?
I think I have it. Just see.
There you go.
There you go. And let me see if I can't shrink this down a little bit.
Yeah, maybe so we can see all of H, G, and H, or most of it anyhow. That's probably good. Greg, do you want to go through this real slowly and not move your screen around so much and kind of just focus on G and H and one paragraph at a time and break this down, and then maybe we open it up for discussion?
Okay, yeah, the G has to do with changes to the zoning code and development standards. So this would be notice of actions that may be taken by the city. And so, frequently there can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days or more notice of potential changes, but this would provide at least 6 months notice if there was going to be any changes to the manufactured mobile home park district or the development standards that would apply to it. That's paragraph G.
Great. Any questions on that section? Greg, could I have you scroll up just a little bit? I think there may be a comment just above that. Could you, scroll back down. It was just above G. It says, note the following potential revisions are a work in progress and subject to further revision. What does it mean for us to vote on a recommendation here?
That was a statement that was from your previous discussions, and so that it wouldn't affect your ability to make a recommendation if you were so inclined.
Thank you. Should we look at H?
So basically that sentence will be struck from the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like just a note.
All right, Greg, do you want to talk us through H1? H and number 1.
Then H is the first of the landlord notice provisions. And it would require that notice to the individual tenants within 14 days of the advertisement or listing. That's the general provision. And then the numbered points 1, 2, 3 provide further detail. The first one of which gives homeowners associations and eligible organizations 45 days to make an offer. It defines what those organizations might be. If there is the notice of intent is delivered, then it provides some additional time for discussions and negotiations between the parties. That covers items 1, 2, and 3. And there is an item 4. And then we go on with items 5 and 6. So if there is no intent, then the extended periods don't apply. So item H then applies specifically with the context of a manufactured or mobile home community that is being advertised or listed for sale, and sets out a number of notice provisions applicable under those circumstances.
Do you know if most sales of manufactured home parks are made through public listings, or if they're unsolicited offers for purchase, and how might this apply if it was an unsolicited purchase offer?
I don't have experience with respect to how many come about from listings and how many come about from unsolicited offers. Anecdotally, I have heard that there is a increase in the number of occasions in which unsolicited offers are made, but I can't tell you the relative percentage of those. Perhaps one of the previous speakers may have some knowledge or experience in that regard. I do not. These provisions are triggered specifically by the advertisement listing or public notice of a property is for sale or lease. So it is a very specific set of circumstances.
Are there other comments or questions from the commissioners?
Commissioner Ricewick here. I have one clarifying question and then a comment. Just a clarifying question is that G applies just to any activities by the city and no one else, no applications by the developer or anything else. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then my comment is, it feels to me, and this is, yeah, I think this situation we need to think about, obviously balancing the community well-being, the owners of the houses, as well as the owners of the property, balancing their rights. And it feels like H really isn't applicable in the aspect of we're setting it up so we do have the mobile home community zoning. It can't be changed without a significant due process. And I kind of feel like the rest of that puts a little bit undue burden on the owner of the park. While I do recognize that people are planning on living there long term, and that the intent, I think, is to try and secure that future for them. But I think maybe the effort would be better placed in one of two ways: either the community members proactively forming a nonprofit to purchase, or spend some of that time having the state legislate some of this instead of doing it at a local level, so we get a little better uniformity across the state, if you will, for mobile homeowners.
I wonder if the applicant or others might be interested in addressing that. It seems I'm thinking of the Walla Walla, the case in Walla Walla, where it was mentioned that rent prices had increased substantially with a change in ownership. So even though there wasn't a change in land use, a change in ownership could have significant implications for the residents.
The city attorney has her hand raised, and then one of our attendees, Isabel, has her hand raised as well.
Let's start with the city attorney.
You're muted, Ree.
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet all of you. I know this is the first time for some of you. I just want to make a general comment about laws. Some of these types of regulations that we have and that are brought before you guys to consider and city council to consider, a lot of them are a roadmap of what we want to see happen and spurs action based on the law, and doesn't necessarily result in a city or a state or a county having to actually enforce the law. That's a tool that we use. And so just generally speaking, you know, with this on the books, this conversation is out there. I imagine that there's already active activity right now to try to get an organization to step up and maybe make an offer on some of these. But I just wanted to kind of give you that background from a municipality and rule making. It doesn't just apply to community development, but other laws as well. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. And John, who all is eligible to participate in this portion of our meeting?
It's up to the commission. As the chair, you're more than you can open it up to other participants if you'd like.
Okay. Let's take the next comment then.
Okay. Ms. Dickens, did you still want to speak?
Yes, I would like to speak. Thank you. I heard a question regarding sales of communities that are not advertised, perhaps sort of backroom deals and things like that. It's actually a requirement in Washington State that if you are considering selling your community, that at the very least you notify the Department of Commerce and I believe also the Washington State Housing Finance Commission and possibly others. Part of the reason for that is that the Department of Commerce staffs the relocation assistance program that provides minimal financial help to homeowners being displaced from a closing community. You know, whether all the landlords comply with that requirement or not, I don't know, but there is a requirement that they at least notify the Department of Commerce and the State Housing Finance Commission before a sale can go forward.
Helpful clarification, thank you.
Okay.
All right, are there other comments or questions from the commissioners?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry, this is Catherine Veninga again, not Mary Campbell. And Commissioner, you had asked a question about what was going on in Walla Walla in the manufactured housing park there. And I'll just give a little bit of what we've learned recently as we've been hearing from residents there. And one thing that's interesting is apparently some of them had asked the owner fairly recently if there was any intention to sell, and the owner said, no, there's no intention to sell, there's no intention to sell. And then lo and behold, the park sold and the tenants weren't notified of that. And I actually think that the law states that the tenants need to be notified of that as well. Yeah, that's the correct spelling. Thank you very much. And so, you know, in terms of the opportunity to purchase, I think it's important that the tenants know that the park is actually for sale, right? So that needs to be transparent in sort of the market transaction. But the experience that they're having is, I think, as Rachel mentioned, their rents are going up considerably. They'll be assessed utility fees. They don't know what those will be. And hearing from them, you know, a lot of them are on very limited incomes. There's nowhere really for them to move their home if they even could move their home. And so what you hear is a real fear that they don't know what is going to happen to them. And they really don't want to be a burden on the state. They don't want to live in subsidized housing. As Ishbel said, they've chosen to live here because it's an affordable place to live. And as you know, these parks get sold as investment properties, there's less inclination to sort of protect that affordability, especially as rents in the rest of the city are rising. There's an argument that, oh, you know, you're below market, we can raise your rent. And then these people, well, their incomes are not going up, right? And so it's that kind of pressure on those low income seniors that I think is a real concern for any jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you for adding additional comments on that case. All right, back to commissioners. Are there additional questions or comments?
Can we please also go over section I?
Ms. Elfenbein has her hand raised.
Sure. So let's take her comment or question, then we'll look at section I. Rachel?
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Just a quick addition to what Catherine has said. When we started this research as the Affordable Housing Implementation Task Force, we did research into all the manufactured home parks in our region, including Columbia County, Walla Walla County, and the Milton-Freewater area. And what we found was there were maybe a couple of lots that were vacant when we found out the numbers of lots and vacant lots in our region. So as Catherine said, there is nowhere to move in the region if the parks were to be redeveloped or to close. there's no place to site their homes. They would have to move out of the region. So we would lose these community members if they were even able to move their homes. And we also know that we have very long waiting lists in our community for subsidized housing, up to several years. And like Catherine said, when we met with the residents in Walla Walla, the manufactured home park that recently sold, they don't want to have to go on waiting lists for subsidized housing. And the reality is we don't have that subsidized housing available in the next few months or even in the next year for more people who are added to the list. So it creates a serious question of where do all these community members go, either if their park is redeveloped or if they can't afford to pay much higher rent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, let's look at section I.
So section I is a requirement that is applicable in situations or instances where a park is proposed to be closed or redeveloped. And the emphasis is then on a relocation plan to help mitigate against the displacement of the residents. And it would include identification of opportunities where the homes could be relocated, perhaps relocation financial assistance, and compensation for homeowners for homes that cannot be moved. There was also some reference to state resources that may be available to assist with this. So this requirement would apply in the instance where parks are to be closed or redeveloped.
The Washington State Department of Commerce has a relocation assistance program, and their program is actually it also assists manufactured home park owners in complying with the Washington state laws. In addition to, there are programs available to help with assistance for relocation, cost for relocation, and the notice requirements and things of that nature as well.
That's to help the homeowners or the landowners?
I think it's a combination of both. It's the programs, I think it's there to provide templates for the closure notices. I mean, they have multiple templates in pretty much every language out there. And to the homeowners in terms of helping with the cost for relocation. Looks like Isabel has her hand raised. She probably can speak in greater detail to that.
All right, Isabel?
Ishbel, sorry, not Isabel.
Ishbel?
Yeah, thank you, John. Yes, the state does have a relocation assistance program. I think it's important to recognize, though, that relocation assistance program is simply to move homes off the land. Rarely do those homes go to another community or another piece of property. They're basically moving them to the dump. And the homeowners are therefore not ever coming close to being compensated for the loss of that home. It gives the landlords nice, fresh piece of dirt to put on whatever development they want to put on it, but it does not really help the homeowners. They get some money, potentially enough to cover the cost of moving their home to the dump. If there's anything left over after that, they're allowed to keep that little bit to maybe help them with a first, last, or deposit on a rental. It's not a quid pro quo by any means. It's $12,000 or something like that, which is nothing when you think about trying to buy another home. So that's all it is. Very minimal. Thank you for letting me speak to that.
Thank you. Commissioner Brennis, I think you raised a question on this section, so you have some follow-up.
Yes. Well, basically on what we've been hearing, we're requiring the property owners of the home park to do certain things that we understand are really not doable, like to, have the expenses to move the home to another home park, but we already know that there's really no other home park to go to. So in reality, what we're requiring the property owner is that they're going to buy all these homes, as number 4 says, compensation homeowners for the fair market value of the homes. I think that's a very high standard that we're putting on a property owner. And I think we need to weigh the, property rights of the property owner with the rights of obviously of the least, people in the manufactured homes. I just think that this paragraph puts a lot of onerous requirements on the owners that frankly can't really be met, other than, basically they're just required to buy everybody out. In my opinion, that's kind of an untenable, position to put the property owners in. The other thing that I'm hearing is that, and there's nothing here to do that, but I think we need to develop some sort of requirement that maybe when these manufactured homes are sold, that there be some proper notice to the people buying these homes of the risks that they're taking. That they're buying these homes on these leased lands, but that at some point they could, in a sense, lose everything. I mean, I think they need to be informed in the moment of the transaction, so that then if it ever happens, that they're not totally caught by surprise. I mean, I think there needs to be some responsibility on that side too. I don't know if anybody else.
I wonder if we could invite Greg to comment on this section, perhaps comment on other communities, whether he's seen it seems like that we're struggling with this between the rights of the homeowners and the landowner. Greg, can you comment on this section of code in particular and what other communities have done? If there's some examples that provide more rights to the landowner, or is this pretty standard for?
I'm actually going to, Mr. Chair, have to defer to the speakers that have done far more research on this and have more direct experience. I am aware of communities that have provisions like this in place, and I am aware that it is certainly an emergent issue, and more communities are attempting to address this issue. And I think was previously noted that there are some efforts at the state level to address this. So I think it's a situation where local governments are leading the way and the state may be following, which is not unusual. As there tends to be a lot more innovation at the local level and more responsiveness to kind of critical situations that require attention at the local level. But I can't speak on from experience on how extensive these type of provisions are in other communities. I am aware of examples, and the previous speakers cited some, including Tumwater and Olympia, where there is some experience in this regard, but I'd have to defer to them to provide more detailed accounting of how common this is and to what extent it is an emergent issue.
Could I make a comment, please?
Mr. Dawson, is it?
Yes. Yeah. Just a comment on this. back when we're balancing these owners of the land versus the owners of the homes, um, I think I'd be completely behind this if, for example, say the city of College Place owned these mobile home parks, and we could say, oh, well, the city needs to do this, but or maybe even if it was a really, really huge developer that's preying on these low income people. But if it is kind of mom and pops folks here that have owned these for years, they're doing the 24/7 maintenance calls, they're, mowing the yards themselves, repairing all the community shared common areas, keeping these how they are. Just it kind of seems like they're in some ways the heroes as well in these situations. And I would just hate to see them be locked into something that after 20, 30, 40, 50 years of trying to put a living together, we lock them into something where they can't sell, they can't get out, or when they do want to, they have so much red tape they go through, they're overwhelmed with the experience. So yeah, I think I can see both sides of it, and I think I'd be really supportive if it was something like the city or some just huge, even predatory organization that was owning these. But if it's just the local mom and pops folks here in College Place who are trying to make a living, it seems a little disproportionate, unbalanced burden on these mom and pops.
Any further questions or comments from the commissioners?
The city attorney has her hand raised again.
All right, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Dawson. I think you nailed it on the head in regards to mandating this type of legislation. And my clients, the city, I kind of got thrown into this just recently, but looking at this section, what I might recommend that the commission consider is requiring the owner to participate in a plan with the city. So the requirement is participating in the plan, but not requiring that they compensate homeowners or pay for moving as a black and white line, because I think you're right. I think that we will have owners that are hand to mouth and they're getting by, and that I think might not pass a legal challenge if we put a big financial burden on this landowner. So perhaps consideration of making this mandatory to participate, so that everyone's working on the same team toward the same goals, and we can list what those goals are, but not tying them into an absolute financial requirement. Just a thought, and I didn't run that by John or Greg, so.
Appreciate that suggestion. John, if we're going to make modifications here, particularly since we won't have a chance to draft those, how do we proceed with an action this evening? Could we act on parts of the documents, but hold others for further consideration?
Yeah, I think you have a lot of options. You could remand this back to staff for further revisions. You could move forward with, let's say, just the zoning amendment portion, establishing the manufactured home park zoning, and leave out let's say sections, let's just say section 8 or H, not 8, section 8H, you could, yeah, so you have some options. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not going to wordsmith this thing tonight. So if there are changes that you would like to see in a portion of it, like section H, then yeah, we would need to do some further work on it. I think I would like to see the zoning move forward and get that off our plate, but that doesn't have to happen. And we also, all the comprehensive plan amendments, I think, are pretty solid, and I'd like to see those move forward as well.
And I didn't mean to throw a wrench in it, but that's the only one that really concerns me. And I think, like John said, you could say you recommend with modifications or recommend with directions. And I will just speak because I imagine it might come up. I read the letter indicating that it might be unconstitutional to have this right of first refusal. And I think the city is on solid grounds to require notice. The notice of intent to sell and opportunity to come forward with an offer. I know one of their concerns was at least implied that maybe the tenants and other developers could get together and kind of collude on what sort of price they're going to offer. That's kind of the reading I got from the letter. So one of the modifications that the commission could consider is we require the owners to deal in good faith, to require the tenants and any eligible organization to deal in good faith too. And so that would alleviate that concern. And then if anyone has any other questions for me.
Yeah, thanks for adding that, Ree, about the part about the possibility of a portion of this being unconstitutional. I mean, I think that sections G and H are, if you are so inclined to move those things forward, I think that the language in them is well crafted. The last section, I think, is probably a little bit of a maybe an overreach on what we're asking the property owner to deal with.
We also do have two hands raised, one from Miss Veninga and one from Miss Elfenbein.
And I will verbally raise my hand as well when my time comes up. This is Greg.
Hand those up first. I'll take them in order if we know.
Okay, yes, Miss Veninga. Veninga.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make a clarification, and I apologize if I wasn't clear earlier. I think, and this is with regard to, I believe it's Commissioner Dawson's comments, that what's happening is the mom and pops are getting out of the manufactured housing market. And so that's why we think that this opportunity to purchase, which is not a right of first refusal, I think it's pretty important to make a distinction between those two things, that the opportunity to purchase is important because what is happening is, as I said, large financial organizations are purchasing these manufactured home parks from the mom and pops. And that's the concern. And that's the concern about the rents getting raised beyond affordability for the residents. And then the city's, really struggling with massive affordability crises. And you did mention, what if the city owned the manufactured housing park? And I'll just say that's a great idea, and that has been done, and that's something that you could also consider, because the point is to have it owned and operated at some point, if it's possible, by a nonprofit that's not seeking to extract higher and higher rents from the low income residents, right? And so that's why a municipally owned manufactured housing park could make really good sense for you. So thank you.
Thanks for that comment. Ms. Elfenbein.
Thank you again, Commissioner Ross, and thank you, Catherine. You said most of what I was going to say. I just want to add, on to what Catherine said about how these mom and pop owners who, have been providing affordable housing, and that's what we've been seeing with the mom and pop owners here locally, have had affordable rent for the homeowners in the park. But with the example of what has just happened in the city of Walla Walla, we did have a mom and pop owner, a family that had invested long-term in the manufactured housing park. But what happens is owners get older. And at a certain point, when they get older and when they age, they want to sell. And the park did sell to a large company that is, I believe, on the west side of the state, and has several other manufactured home parks, what it appears to, from what we know. So we know that this is happening locally, that there are mom and pop owners who have been providing affordable homes, but at a certain point they are going to need to sell. And because there are large investment firms buying up parks, that this can happen to the parks here. Also, I do believe I provided Reg with some examples of cities that do own manufactured home parks, that have bought manufactured home parks in order to keep the homes within them affordable. So we do have those examples to share with the commission and with the city.
All right, thank you. Mr.
And-
Burns?
Yeah, I was just going to also add that we have, setting aside the housekeeping matters, we have 3 items on the agenda that relate to this subject. One is the goals and policies, which would be amendments to the comprehensive plan. The other would be an amendment to the official zoning map, and the third would be amendments to the development regulations. The amendments to the comprehensive plan goals and policies, state law provides that the city can only amend comprehensive plan once a year. There is no restriction on when or how many times development regulations or the official zoning map can be amended. So from a timing standpoint, the amendments to the comprehensive plan goals and policies, which would provide the policy direction, are the most time sensitive. Is that something that really, as a practical matter, should be completed in the year 2021? And the development regulations and the zoning map would implement those policies and can be taken up at any time. Now, I'm not advocating that they be deferred, but kind of listening to the discussion and the debate, and I think that there may be some opportunities to further revise the regulatory portion. But I might suggest, Mr. Chair, that one approach would be to take up the goals and policy amendments, the policy direction, and if you were so inclined, forward that to the city council, and then we could take additional time at the staff level and come back at your next meeting with potential amendments or revisions to the regulatory sections, which are, we have greater flexibility to make those amendments. So that might help kind of organize the steps from where you sit right now.
Thank you. But I hear you advocating that we act on Exhibit A, I believe it is. Also, there's not been a lot of conversation or concern over Exhibit C or D. Most of our conversations focused on B. So in a moment, we're going to need to invite a motion. It seems like one option would be to act or to move to approve Exhibits A, C, and D, and request more work on Exhibit B. Another possibility might be for us to also include Exhibit B, but request more work on section I. Those are two of many possibilities. Commissioners, you tend to be slow to make a motion, so I'm going to suggest that one of you make one of those motions or something similar in a moment. But first, I'd like to take a couple more hands. Commissioner Brennis, Mr. Rickard, I'd also like to invite the two commissioners who haven't spoken yet tonight to have a chance to speak. So,
this is Commissioner Brennis, and what I was going to suggest is exactly what you just frankly suggested, was that we move item by item, but we could probably do the 3 items that seem to not have any real discussion as a whole, and then have an opportunity to vote on those in that fashion.
so is that a motion to approve exhibits A, C?
Well, it's not a motion. It's not a motion yet, but because you also asked that you wanted to hear from the other 2 commissioners, so I don't want to make a motion and preempt any other discussion that might be wanting to be made.
Perfect. I'll come back to you for potentially for a motion after we hear from the others. Mr. Rickard, and then our other two quiet commissioners.
Yeah, I would recommend that we take each of the exhibits as its own motion. That way, if there's any discussion or deliberation on each one of those, we can, it's clear what the intent is. So just take them one by one. And then I would like to throw out with exhibit B, and I may have mentioned this, but with exhibit B, another option too is just to completely, you could move forward with option B, but strike, G through I if you were so inclined, and just forward that on to City Council for consideration, and then they can take it up that way.
Mm-hmm. So City Council will have an opportunity to potentially add sections back in if they wished.
Well, they always have that as an option, but yes.
We're not the final, we're just making a recommendation to City Council.
Right.
Yeah, good. All right, thank you. I would like to invite comment from Commissioners Olson and Wagner, starting with Commissioner Olson. Is there anything that you want to add to our conversation this evening?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Wagner?
Well, I've been taking this all in and enjoying the discussion back and forth. I don't have anything really to add. To be honest with you, my experience as a county surveyor, et cetera, and land development comes from experience actually working on doing developments. And so I've worked for developers, whether it be a mobile home park or whatever, but never from this perspective. I'm kind of in the learning mode. So I just as soon sit here and kind of take it in and learn.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let me invite a motion on Exhibit A then. Mr. Rickard suggested we take these section by section. So let's start with the sections that have the least questions or concerns. Exhibit A. Is there a motion?
So as we make the motion, should we just mention Exhibit A, or should we, I guess, know what the title of Exhibit A is?
Yeah, could we share that, Greg or John, whoever's sharing the screen right now? Just so everyone's clear on what we're acting on.
Yep, I will see if I can't get Exhibit A, well, back up on the screen here, so just bear with me. Looks like actually there it is right there.
There it was.
So Exhibit A is the updated comprehensive plan, goals and policies.
Yes.
So I will make a motion that we accept and recommend for City Council acceptance of goals and policies on the comprehensive plan amendments known as Exhibit A here in our discussion today.
Thank you. Mr. Brennis, is there a second?
Commissioner Racewig would second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Reswig. Any further discussion? All right, we're going to do a verbal vote, but if there's any dissent, we'll probably need to do a roll call just because it's hard to see who's voting which way. So all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, Exhibit A passes. Should we take up a motion on Exhibit C? And could we be reminded of what that is? Looks like housekeeping amendments, the development code.
Yes.
Would someone like to make a motion on that exhibit?
Well, I'll make another motion that we accept and recommend to City Council acceptance of the housekeeping amendments to the development code, known as Exhibit C in our discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Brennis. Is there a second?
Wagner seconds it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Wagner. Any further discussion? All right, again, a voice vote. All in favor of the motion to approve Exhibit C, housekeeping amendments to the development code, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that's passed as well. Exhibit D, zoning map amendments. Is there a motion on Exhibit D?
Commissioner Ricewig motions to accept Exhibit D zoning map amendment and recommend that to City Council.
Thank you.
Approve and recommend, sorry.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rennis. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
Who seconded that motion?
Commissioner Brennis.
Okay, thank you.
Now we're back to Exhibit B, manufactured housing amendments to the development code.
So I'd like to make a motion on that,
please.
Commissioner Brennis, and that is that we accept the manufacturing house amendments to the development code, striking section I, and recommend that to City Council.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Commissioner Wagner will second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagner. Now an opportunity for some discussion. Any comments or questions?
Commissioner Ricewig has a question. And I don't know if this is the appropriate channel, but I like everything but H and I. And I don't know if we discuss that and if we have to do a second.
We would need to vote down the current motion.
Okay.
And then consider that as a motion. But your preference would be to strike H and I.
Correct.
Okay.
You actually could make a motion to amend the motion by striking that section. And then you would vote on the amendment. And then you would take a second vote on the amended motion.
All right.
Your option.
Well, I would be happy to make an motion that we strike H from that and send it back for further review.
Is there a second to amend Commissioner Brennis' motion?
And if there is no second, then the motion to amend dies and you go back to your discussion on the original motion.
That's correct. So we're back to the original motion, which is to approve Exhibit B, but strike Section I. Are there further comments or conversation, questions?
Was there a second on my motion?
Mr. Wagner?
Not yet.
Yes, Mr. Wagner, Commissioner Wagner
Okay.
seconded the original motion.
Okay.
All right. Well, I was expecting more conversation at this point, but maybe you've all said your part. So then the motion is to approve Exhibit B while striking Section I. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye. Commissioner Ricewig.
So there are some in favor, some opposed, and probably some abstaining. So could we just do a quick roll call vote? Would that be an appropriate way to make sure we
Yes.
get counted?
It would be. Commissioner Roth, your vote?
I believe as chair, I don't vote unless there's a tie. Is that correct?
No, as a member of the commission, you do vote. But I can have you vote last if you would like.
Would you please? I hadn't anticipated voting, so I hadn't.
Okay. Commissioner Brennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson? You're muted. You're still muted. Give me a thumbs up for aye and a thumbs down for nay. Down, nay. Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Ricewig?
Nay.
Commissioner Wagner?
In favor. Aye.
And Commissioner Roth?
Aye.
So the motion passes 4-2.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate the good questions and good discussion from our commissioners this evening. I want to thank the applicant and others who've been able to provide comment and information. I'm really appreciative of all the community participation. Usually this is a very quiet meeting, whether it was as it was when it was in person or here on virtually, very quiet. So I appreciate all the community response and community participation. Thank you, Greg and John, for helping guide us through this conversation and bring these amendments. And I'm sure I've missed some folks as well in my thank yous, but it's really, I appreciate the good discussion this evening. Is there any other items for the good of the order?
Are you in terms of closing items?
Yes.
Okay. So you already approved it in the consent agenda, but we won't have a meeting next month in November or in December. So we'll see you in January. And just the kind of the process forward, just so everybody that's still in attendance is aware, is that the next council meeting will be the 9th. We will likely have an introductory. This will be an agenda item where we'll do a presentation to the city council and introduce them to what the recommendation is, and then likely they will we'll bring it back to them on the 23rd for action, I think is the schedule that we would take.
John,
Yes.
can I clarify the canceling those meetings was not in the consent agenda, so we do need a motion on that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it was. So staff would like to cancel the November meeting and the December meeting as there is no pending applications or information for the Planning Commission to consider.
Is there a motion?
So motioned.
I'll make them.
Mr. Dawson, is a second perhaps?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. John, anything else?
No, thank you so much, and everyone have a happy holiday and happy holidays. And thank you so much for all the work that you guys have put in over the last year on these topics. I appreciate all your input and feedback and time.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. If there's no objection, then our meeting is adjourned.
Nice to meet everyone. It's a great lively group. I like it.
Thank you, City Attorney. I forgot to thank you for being here this evening and for sharing your advice. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, our meeting's adjourned.